Good morning, afternoon, whenever you're watching this. We're on lesson 5. I can simplify and write equivalent expressions that contain negative exponents. So that means up until this point, we've had mostly positive exponents. Now our exponents will be to the negative power. If you need to go back and review multiplying exponents with the same base or raising powers to powers, those lessons are available. Powers to a power is lesson 3. And multiplying exponents is lesson 2. Okay, so what should 3 to the negative 5th power mean? You've learned about fractions before. There's a numerator and a denominator. What the negative 5 is telling us is that this actually belongs in the denominator. So we transfer our base of 3 and the positive version of that exponent into the denominator, and we put a 1 in the numerator. So this works for any exponent and any base. If you have a negative exponent, transfer that base and the positive version of your exponent into a denominator of a fraction and add a 1 to the numerator if you have no other numbers in your expression. I'll show you what I mean by that in just a minute. Okay, so in exercise 5, let's do this with numbers. I have a negative exponent, so I want to transfer the positive version of that into my denominator. There's no other numbers, so my numerator is a 1. Your equivalent expression is 1 over 5 to the 3rd power. Now look at exercise 6. We start out with our base and exponent in our denominator. So exercise 6 is just the opposite of exercise 5. If I start out with my fraction, then I'm transferring that to find an equivalent expression. This will be 8 to the negative 9th power. You know, a minute ago when I said I didn't have any other numbers? Well, look at exercise 7. We've talked before in earlier videos about how even if a whole number does not have an exponent, there's still 1, 3, so we still need an exponent of 1 if we're talking about how many are there. So this is positive, this one is negative. I still make my fraction. I transfer what's negative to my denominator. What's positive will now go in my numerator. Now you don't have to leave that as 3 to the 1st. 3 to the 1st is the same as 3 over 2 to the 4th. So either one of these answers would work. Even if you have a variable, the same concept applies. Make yourself a fraction, put the positive version of that exponent in your denominator. All right, you try exercises 9 and 10. Pause here, and then we'll go over it when you get finished. All right, you should be finished by now. So I start out in exercise 9 with my base and exponent in my denominator. I want to write an equivalent expression, so I just go backwards again. I would get x to the negative 9th power. That's exactly the same as 1 over x to the 9th. Now for exercise 10, my exponent for x is technically 1 because I have 1x. So I will make a fraction. My negative exponent will go into the denominator. My positive exponent goes into the numerator. Be very careful. A lot of times people want to transfer that y to the denominator, but they want to keep their negative exponent. Don't do that. Make sure you write the positive version of that exponent. So this is when you'll use this skill mostly. If I start out with 19 to the second divided by 19 to the fifth, we've learned in earlier lessons that if my base is the same, I keep my base and I subtract, because I'm dividing, I subtract my exponents. 2 minus 5. And I get 19 to the negative third. But a lot of times you will be asked to write your solution with a positive exponent. So all you have to do now is make yourself a fraction. Put 19 to the third in your denominator, 1 in your numerator. Exercise 12, same thing applies. I have a base of 17, so I keep my base. Be very careful here. I'm going to subtract my exponents, but my subtraction sign and my negative sign are not the same thing. I cannot count my negative sign as my subtraction sign. So I have a subtraction sign and my negative 3. And you've learned before that when you subtract a negative number, you end up adding those. So you would get a final answer of 17 to the 19th power. You actually didn't have to transfer anything to your denominator for exercise 12. Let's talk about one more thing. If you have a negative 1 inside your denominator, you're just going to transfer that to a numerator. That would technically be over 1, but anything over 1 is itself. So g to the first power, or just a g. Okay. So if we summarize today's lesson, negative exponents are transferred to a fraction. If you start out with 19 to the negative 4th, move a positive 19 to the 4th to your denominator. If you have 19 to the negative 4th in your denominator, move that to your numerator over 1, giving you 19 to the 4th. Okay, have a great day.